why is career planning important? So, it's really interesting that a lot of us don't really realize the importance of career planning because we're so busy just trying to go through life. So, one of the things that I like to do as a career coach is obviously sit with my clients and get into what is it exactly are you looking to do for your future, and why is it so important for you to pursue career planning. So let's get into that. So what is career planning? Career planning refers to the strategy a person uses to determine career goals and the path to achieve these goals. Now, sometimes that can seem either very daunting, or for others, it can be very easy. The interesting thing about career planning, it really is up to an individual, because you have to decide, what is it do I really want to do for myself? Where do I see myself in the next 5, 10, even sometimes where do I see myself in a year? With this pandemic, it's really hard for some people to even think about planning 5 years out. It's a lot easier to think about, where do I see myself in the next 6 months? Where do I see myself in the next year? So taking the opportunity to sit down either on your own or with a professional and identifying, what are my career goals? Where do I want to see myself? You know, maybe for the past 5, 10 years, you were in the industry that you either really liked or you didn't. And now you're at a point where you're trying to see, where can I take my skills to a different level? Or, what are some of the other opportunities that are out there? And with this pandemic, honestly, this is a great chance and time for people to really sit back and reflect on, where do you really want to see yourself. So the importance of career planning. Again, as I mentioned, the importance of career planning can't be overemphasized. It's really a time for people to sit back and look at, what is it that I really want to do? So having a plan is critical, and every person should have one. Now, a lot of times when you hear of career planning, it's often reserved for executives. But what a lot of, or when you're in school, so when you were in college, everybody had to go to the career center, and you had to, meet with your career advisor. And for a lot of us, that's where it ends. When we get into the real world, we stop thinking about career planning because we found our jobs. But then you find that there's so many of us who are just moving in these jobs and not really living our greatest dream, or we're just stagnant in a position because we're so caught up in our job titles, right? So one of the things about career planning and the importance of it is because it aligns your interests, your passion, your skills, and your experiences. And for those of you who are just coming out of school, it also includes your studies. So what did I study in school, right? If I'm a recent graduate and I studied psychology, where do I want to go with my psychology degree? A lot of people can say that, well, with psychology, the only option you have is to work with mental health, but that's not true, right? Psychology is very broad. So when you sit down and you have the time to really analyze, what are my interests? What are my passions? What are my skills? What is it that I really want to do that's really going to make me happy? There's a saying that, if you do what you love, you'll never look at work the same way again, right? Because you wake up every day doing something that you love. And I think that's true. But there are a lot of us who don't have that opportunity to necessarily get into that position or that job that we actually love, right? So in the meantime, we have to then try to figure out, where can I position myself where my interest and my passion and my skills will be able to help me build on this career that I want, and having a plan, being able to sit down and actually look at all these things that you're bringing to the table is so critical. There are a lot of times when I meet with clients and they will tell me, I really want to do this, I really want to do this, but I can't, because either they have influences from their family, they have influences from whatever culture they come from, and they are not able to really live to their fullest potential. But when I take the time to really sit with them and ask them, okay, I understand what society is dictating to you, but what do you want to do? Where do you see yourself? What are the things that actually make you happy? And you find that once they're able to sit down and really focus on the things that make them happy, and then align those things with where they see themselves in the future, and then also looking at an opportunity to look at jobs that are out there that will be in line with what their career goals are, what their interests are, and their skills are, they start to look at life from a different perspective. Okay, now I know we had said that we would reserve the questions for the latter part of the presentation, but if it's possible, I just wanted to ask these few questions, and if people can just answer them in the chat, that'll be great. But when you think about career planning, right, it involves personal choices, because remember, it's about us. Career planning is about you as an individual, not about what other people are dictating for you to do. So when you ask yourself some questions, one would be, what do I really want to do? You know, what are some of the job options that are out there that may be of interest to me? And how do I get the job that I really want? And I think that's a question that a lot of people struggle with. So a lot of people are working in positions that maybe they don't really want, but are not really certain how to get that ideal job that they want. And the other question is, what compromises must I make? You know, in life, we always have to compromise something. It doesn't mean necessarily mean it's a bad thing, right? But what are some of the things I'm going to either, invest now and give up later, or vice versa? And then when should I actually start my job search? You know, do I start my job search when I have an ideal job? Do I start my job search now that I'm in a pandemic and there's a possibility that I may not be able to go back to the particular job that I had? And if I just had a job, is this a great opportunity for me to actually start to look into developing a career? So, where do I really see myself? What do I really want to do? And how will all these things pan out as I start to create my ideal job plan for myself? Okay. And when we start planning, one of the things that we have to do, and this is the thing, honestly, I think is one of the hardest things for people, is assessing yourself. To do a self assessment, I often tell my clients that I think a lot of us lie to ourselves, honestly, because we'll tell ourselves things that are sometimes not really the honest truth about what our abilities are, right? Sometimes we always make ourselves look a lot better than we are. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're doing a deep dive on yourself and you're doing a career plan for yourself, it's important to be brutally honest with yourself. We all have weaknesses, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you identify your weaknesses, the next thing to do is, how do I improve on these weaknesses, right? So number one is to assess yourself. Number two is research the career path in which you're trying to go into. What is the area you're trying to go into? You know, what is required of that area? And then make a decision. Whatever the decision is this an area that I want to go into now? Do I want to wait a little bit? Do I need to build on more skills? What do I need to do to be able to move to the next level? And once you've done all of that, and mind you, these things are not going to be done in 2 days or a week, because if you're doing an honest self-assessment on yourself, it takes time. And there are some really good questions that you can ask yourself as you're doing the self-assessment. And then when you're doing the research, you actually want to take the time to research, what are the various career paths that I can take? What are my options that are out there, right? And now you've come to that point. What decision am I going to make? Once you decide on the decision, then you have to take action. This is another area where we all often kind of, are very lackadaisical. Okay, I'm going to do it, but I'm not. Should I do it today? Maybe. But really take action. Take action after you've taken the time to write all these things down. Take action and really get into whatever it is that you're looking to do. Then start to manage your career. Once you find that path and you find that desire, and you find that your desires, your interests, and all of your skills are aligned, and you get this opportunity to be in this great career that you've always wanted, now start to manage it. What does that entail? Well, it could be that you have to take additional trainings throughout the year, or you may have to, take a certification, whatever it is that you need to do to maintain yourself in that new career per se, then it's important that you do it. It's important that you keep yourself up to date with what is happening in your industry. A lot of times we tend not to really keep abreast with what's happening in our industry. Every industry has trends. Every industry has things that are happening, things that are good, that are bad. It's important for you to be aware of what is happening in my industry. And in this industry, is this an area where, again, I want to stay in? And if it's not, then I decide to move. But being able to manage your career, it does encompass a lot of things. And it's important for one to be aware of these things, okay? So what does that also look like? It's, updating your resume, making sure that you're part of an association. Being part of association is one of the things that we're often told when you are about to graduate from school. And I know for some of us it's a long time ago, but find out what industry are you in, and then is there an association, right? Because when you join an association, you get to find out, are there any trainings that I need to keep up with? You find out with people who have been in the industry for a long time. How is your career? Like, what are some of the areas that I can expand on? What are some of the things that I can do to help myself become better at what I do? So by networking with various associations and being a part of these associations is always part of managing your career as well. So let's take a deeper dive at looking at some of the features of career planning, as I just stated earlier. So I talked about the self-assessment, which is self-analyst here. So first and foremost, among the features of career planning is the need for you to do a self-assessment, right? You need to be able to analyze yourself. You need to be able to find out what are your strengths, what are your abilities, your knowledge, your personal preferences, and also your weaknesses. And I talked about earlier the opportunities. Once you determine your career choice, you need to analyze the available opportunities. What's out there for me? Sometimes we just don't know. And that's why by joining an association, you'll be surprised at who you can meet and what they will be able to share with you about different opportunities within that career field, right? And goal setting. Goal setting is so important. I think a lot of people overlook goal setting, but you need to be able to set realistic short-term and long-term goals in order for you to be able to move forward. And it's not just about career planning, but goal setting is something that we should be doing, often when we're looking at not only our careers, but what are the goals for my own personal life, right? So career planning is one thing, but what about my goals for my personal life? So when you're talking about goal setting, it's extremely important that you are very honest with yourself, and make sure you set goals that are attainable. Don't put yourself in a situation where you set a goal so high that in the long run you get frustrated with it. And that's why I stated here, you should start with be able to set your short-term goals and then your long-term goals, and those goals should be realistic, right? And then creating a strategy for an action plan. So now you've found this job, you realize what it is that you want to do with your career, and now you have to put this into action. So what does your action plan look like? What are all the different avenues that you're going to take to make sure that you finally get into whatever career goal that you've set for yourself? So setting an action plan is important as well. And there are a lot of wonderful resources online that you can look into about setting your action plans, okay? So after we've done all this wonderful stuff, right? And you've done your action plan, you've set up, your career goals. I think it's so important for us to be able to, create this model. And this is what this is, right? So we talk about the self-assessment part. Okay, and we talk about the exploration objectives and our placements, right? So I need clarification. I need to be clear about what I want to do. And within our career planning, you cannot plan your career without looking at your life goals. It's impossible, because when you're really looking at your career plan, and when I talked about being able to really make those decisions, you have to ask yourself, is this the job that I'm looking for, or is this the career that I'm willing to go down? What am I actually looking for in this career path? And when we talk about jobs, right, we talk about our salaries. So if I decide to transition from where I am now to a different career, what will the salary look like? How is that going to impact my family? Will I be willing to move? So as we make these decisions, it's extremely important to factor in everything. And that's why I said at the beginning, when you're doing your self-assessment, you have to assess everything. Who and what are all the factors that are going to have an impact on how my decisions are going to be, especially if you're a family person, if you're a husband or a wife, a mother, your father, you have to make decisions that are great for yourself indeed, right? But if I decide to take a job in California today, how's that going to impact my kids? Because they're in school. Okay, great. Right now they're virtual, so it could work for a bit, but how is that going to impact the family in the long run? So it's important to look at all these decisions as we plan our career goals. Okay. So I wanted to give you guys just a quick little cheat sheet on what a basic career plan example could look like, right? So when we think about our resumes, keeping it updated. I cannot tell you how many times I meet with clients and, it's time to update their resumes. And they have had like 5 jobs from the last time they updated their resume. And I'm like, okay, we need to update this resume. And you'll be surprised at how many people don't even remember, okay, I worked here, but what did you do? I go, okay, I can't remember. So one of the things that I like to tell my clients is, one, make sure that you're keeping your resume updated. So whenever you start a new job, take your job description seriously. If you have an opportunity, save the job description is even better. But if for whatever reason you're not able to get a hard copy of it, copy and paste it and just plunk it into your resume. Don't worry about the format. When you meet with a professional, they'll come and help you out with that. But make sure that you are keeping your resume up to date. It's so important. And then making career planning a regular event, right? So we've done your short-term goals. You looked at your career plan. You created one for the year of 2020. It looks great. Well, in 2022, come back and reevaluate it because there might be things that have changed. The beauty of being a human being is that we don't have to stay stagnant. We're allowed to change. So maybe what I liked this year, I may not be so into it next year. And I may want to look at a different career opportunity where my skills and ability will allow me to transition into. And then, reflect on your career path. We're allowed to do that. We're allowed to, again, like I just said, we're allowed to transition. It doesn't have to be stagnant, and then one of the things that I always tell people, really be able to tell yourself, what is it that I like and what is it that I don't like? A lot of times we find ourselves doing things that we're not really comfortable or like we really don't like to do. And I know sometimes at work, I get it. Sometimes at work, we find ourselves doing things that we don't like to do, but we'll do it because we want to maintain our jobs. Absolutely. But when you get a chance, allow yourself to really be honest with yourself and say, you know what? As much as I really enjoy going to work and I love what I'm doing and I love the salary that I'm making here, but you know what? If you're not fulfilled, then you have to ask yourself, that means if I'm not so fulfilled, what would make me even more fulfilled? What is it that I really want to do? Okay, being able to have those honest conversations with yourself. And then keep a record of your achievements. I like to tell my clients your accomplishments. You will be surprised at how much you do at work every day. You would really be surprised. But a lot of the times we don't even realize how much work we're putting into work. So whenever you do something, if you ever get acknowledged at work, I tell people, we have these trusty cell phones now. Write yourself a note, in the note section in your phone, just write a note, and you should actually put it like accomplishments from work. So every time you do something big or small, write it in there for yourself. It's just for yourself. Just write it in there. And then identify your transferable skills. That one is key because a lot of us think that we're our job titles and we're so much more than that. And once you're able to identify what skills you bring to the table, honestly, I like to tell my clients it makes you even more powerful than you really are, right? Because then you realize that, wait a minute, I can actually do this. I have the capability of, I didn't know I could. And when you start to understand that you are so much more than your job title of accountant, or you're so much more than your job title of project manager, they bring so much more to the table, I'm telling you, there's nothing more exciting for me than when I see that light bulb go off on my clients and they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. I can do more, right? And then going back to setting goals, right? So we talk about setting our career goals. It's extremely important. No matter how comfortable you are in your position at work, for those of us who are not looking to leave your job, but you should always, set goals for yourself. What are you going to learn this year that you didn't learn last year? What is it about yourself that you want to improve on at work? You should always be looking at improving yourself. That should be something that you do always. I tell people that I'm a lifelong learner because I always take an opportunity to learn. And that's something that we should all be doing. What is it you want to learn this year that you didn't do last year, okay? And then obviously exploring education and training opportunities. Let me tell you something. In this pandemic, 2 things people need to focus on. One, figure out what you really want to do before we get out of here. So that's with the career goals, right? Looking at what the goals are. So sitting down with yourself, creating your plan and all this. But the other thing is taking the opportunity to take some free training. There are some wonderful platforms online that you could take computer training, you could take HR training, you could take accounting. There's so much stuff online. So taking the opportunity to do that is great. Oops, I'm sorry. And then leveraging and learning from others, getting out of your comfort zone is key. And then obviously researching future advancement opportunities. So I'm on my last slide, I think. So key takeaways. The career planning process is a series of steps to help you decide on your short and long-term goals. You might emerge in this process on your own or with the help of a career counselor. Start with a self-assessment, and that is so critical to understand what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and then research potential careers and decide on a career path. And finally, make sure you set your short-term and your long-term goals. Thank you for your attention.
That was great. Thank you so much, Kay.
Thank you.
So I think the thing that I'm walking away with, that it is, I think a lot of times we tend to think of a career coach or counseling as something that you do right after you graduate from college or high school. But the key takeaway that I'm getting from you is that it is a lifetime process, and
Absolutely.
you can never stop educating, discovering, and training and directing your careers so that it suits your passion and goals. Is that how you look at it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And it also seems like it's a very holistic approach that you focus on. Could you talk a little bit about why that's important, and it's not just about your goal? You talk a little bit about making sure it matches your home life and what you want out of life.
It's so interesting that you say that, honestly. So yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine, and she says, you know what, one of the things that makes your career coaching so unique is because you take that holistic approach. And because for me personally, the foundation is my spiritual foundation. Okay, so I believe that everybody should be happy. We were not created not to live our fullest lives. So being able to take that opportunity to work with somebody and being able to give them that opportunity to share their dreams. You see, what often happens is a lot of us get caught up in what I like to say this. So, I think we're all Africans on this line. I like to say, as Africans, we have 5 careers. You're an accountant, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're an engineer, and you're a nurse, I think it is, right? And it's not only Africans, right? I find that out for my clients, Asians. So there's certain careers that we were almost born into without us wanting to do them. So when you finally meet people and you say, no, actually, there's so much more. I've had clients who have said, no, I can't do it because my parents have told me I have to be. And I asked them, what do you want to be? And you know how interesting it is when you actually ask somebody, what do you, because nobody really asks that, right? We're often told we have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. So that holistic approach comes from really just understanding that we all have that right to be happy. And your happiness may not be my happiness. But if I'm able to help you achieve the best that you can be, then for me, that's satisfaction.
That's great. So it's more than a job, it's a career.
It for me, it's more than a job. I like to say it's my ministry.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. For those of you who want to learn a little bit more about Kay, there's a link